Okay, I have up here on the Iranian nuclear deal and Obama and what he has to say. So let's just freestyle it here and let's go with what the mainstream has to say on this particular one to start off with.
Obama says nuclear deal can't make Iran recognize Israel. President Obama said Monday it would be a fundamental misjudgment to try and force Iran to recognize Israel's right to exist, or to make such a demand as part of broader negotiations over Iran's nuclear program. In an interview with NPR, the president said it is unrealistic to think Iran suddenly will change course and recognize Israel. Iranian leaders not only do not acknowledge Israel's existence, they also have called for the destruction of the Jewish state on repeated occasions.
Exactly. So then why would you make a deal with somebody that lives in the vicinity of Israel that wants to destroy them? Yet you made a deal with them thinking that you know better than Israel, the neighbor of that hateful state. It doesn't make sense. Well, it kind of does actually when you keep listening and connect the dots.
Still, Mr. Obama indicated nuclear negotiations must be kept separate from animosity between Iran and Israel. The notion that would condition Iran.
No, I disagree. That's totally wrong, and that's a liberal way of looking at things. That they're not spiritual whatsoever, and they don't look at biblical prophecy. And that's what it comes down to, is prophecy and what the Bible says. Because we're looking at this through a biblical scope here.
Getting nuclear weapons in a verifiable deal on Iran recognizing Israel is really akin to saying that we won't sign the deal unless the nature of the Iranian regime completely transforms, the president said. And that is, I think, a fundamental misjudgment. He said the point of negotiating.
Misjudgment on your part for actually going through with it, because again, you're liberal and you think everything's fine and dandy in your non-spiritual thinking.
In fact, his relies on judgment that the Islamic Republic, which also supports terrorists and engages in deadly discrimination at home against women, gays, and religious minorities, will not change anytime soon. I want to return to this point. We want Iran not to have nuclear weapons precisely because we can't bank on the nature of the regime changing. That's exactly why we don't want them to have nuclear weapons. If suddenly Iran transformed itself to Germany or Sweden or France, then there would be a different set of conversations about their nuclear infrastructure, he said. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has criticized the U.S.-led nuclear negotiations with Iran, which last week produced a preliminary deal between the two sides. He fears Iran still will be left with nuclear capabilities that could threaten Israel. The real problem in the Middle East is not the democracy of Israel that has shown restraint and responsibility, but it is countries like Iran that pursue nuclear weapons with the explicit goal first of annihilating us, but also ultimately conquering the Middle East and threatening the U.S., Mr. Netanyahu said on NBC's Meet the Press program.
And this is the truth. Yet nobody seems to want to listen to him. Yet he lives in that area and he knows what they teach and what I've obviously come to realize through all the research that I've seen and read, which isn't Palestinian propaganda. Anyway, here, let's see what the nuclear experts endorse Iran nuclear agreement in open letter. Oh, I wonder, of course they do, right? Because they're part of the nuclear industry and they need to make money. Let's see what the nuclear industry has to say about this deal. I wonder if they're happy about it.
The fallout from last week's nuclear framework agreement between world powers and Iran has seen proponents and critics of the deal loudly sounding off on its supposed merits or flaws. On Monday, 30 top nuclear non-proliferation experts took sides in the debate by issuing a joint statement that strongly endorsed the agreement. Describing the framework as a vitally important step forward, the statement breaks down the positive aspects of the proposed deal from a security and non-proliferation standpoint. The statement authors claim that among other benefits, the deal will significantly reduce Iran's capacity to enrich uranium to the point that it would take at least 12 months to amass enough uranium enriched to weapons grade for one bomb. Require Iran to modify its Iraq heavy water reactor.
So they're not denying it's a possibility, is what I get out of that statement.
To meaningfully reduce its proliferation potential and bar Iran from developing any capability for weapons. Put in place enhanced international inspection and monitoring that would help to deter Iran from attempting to violate the agreement. But if Iran did, increase the international community's ability to detect promptly and, if necessary, disrupt future efforts by Iran to build nuclear weapons, including at potential undeclared sites. And require Iran to cooperate with the IAEA to conclude the Iran's past efforts to develop a nuclear warhead and provide transparency sufficient to help ensure that any such effort remains in abeyance. The statement also contained a line that directly contradicts one of the talking points of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who claimed over the weekend on NBC's Meet the Press that a deal would spark an arms race among the Sunni states, a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. The nuclear security experts contend just the opposite, stating that the agreement reduces the likelihood of destabilizing nuclear weapons competition in the Middle East and strengthens global efforts to prevent proliferation. Written by mostly American specialists on nuclear security, the signatories to the statement also include former diplomats and government officials, as well as prominent authors on arms control. Dr. Darlene A.A., the senior analyst on Iran for the International Crisis Group, Dr. Jeffrey Luis, director of the East Asia Non-Proliferation Program at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey, and former U.S. Ambassador Thomas Pickering are among the authors. The statement ended by putting pressure on politicians to see the agreement through, stating, "We urge policymakers in key capitals to support the deal and the steps necessary to ensure timely implementation and rigorous compliance with the agreement." Elsewhere, on Monday, a separate statement was released by the nonprofit advocacy group The Iran Project. In a letter signed by analysts and former top officials, including former Secretary of State Madeleine Albright and former National Security Advisor Zbigniew Brzezinski, the authors welcomed the framework agreement. The authors also warned Congress against interference in the process, saying, "We call on the U.S. Congress to take no action that would impede further progress or undermine the American negotiators' efforts to complete the final comprehensive agreement on time."
Anyway, those are my thoughts. Just seems kind of fishy. Well, not fishy, it's just obvious that the nuclear industry would give an open letter in agreement with a deal, right? Because everything's been working on behind the scenes, you know. They give you a fuzzy outlook of what the whole deal is. They don't give any foundational information, and you know this is all prophesied in the Bible anyway, that there would be some kind of a nuclear fallout happening. They explained it in old English terms, in terms that aren't the same as nowadays English, but that's in essence what will happen. And with this Iranian deal, it's kind of looking that that could be more of a possibility in the very near future. Anyway, those are my